Hello, everybody. I'm Vince Mickens with the Private Air Media Group. Welcome to All Things Aviation and Aerospace. I say this every week. I always say I'm really excited about this show, but I am really excited about this show because I am sitting in the cabin of a Cessna Citation CJ3 Plus, a business jet, and I'm just to be in the cabin. I actually like to be up front, like to be at 41,000 feet, but take what you can get. No, it's really great to be here, and it's really a pleasure because I've known the company and a lot of individuals at the company for a long time to sit here and talk with Textron Aviation and hear about what's going on in the industry, what opportunities exist for aircraft sales, for becoming a flight aircraft demo pilot, or for a mixture of the two. And then what's really cool is that so we have two people that are veterans in this industry, and we have a newbie. She called herself an infant. I was like, nah, you're probably a toddler, but she's brand new to the industry and has a great story to tell as well. So I'm gonna let you hear about their backgrounds and how they got to where they are and what was the spark and then how great of an industry it is. And we were just talking before starting the program to say that there are opportunities abound right now, and they're growing, and they're going to continue to grow. And I just think they're going to grow exponentially in all aspects of the industry. The industry needs pilots and mechanics and avionic techs, and you name it. All areas are going to be needed. So I wanted to share just a little quick story about me and aircraft and why I have such an appreciation for sales. But when I was 12, and that was quite some time ago, it's actually in the late 60s, I was watching TV at home. That's back when we had 1 or 2 TVs and 3 or 4 channels versus what everybody has now. And I was watching TV at home, and I saw a 16-year-old solo in a Cessna Skyhawk 172 at Lambert St. Louis International Airport. And it was on the news, and I saw the high wing Cessna, and I heard 16. And I looked at my parents, and I was like, hey, he's only 16. I'm 12. I can fly a plane. And they said, sure, son, you go for it. So the very next day, we had this big newsstand that had every magazine you can imagine. The very next day, I went there looking for a magazine about flying, and I found Flying Magazine. And that was my first time to start reading that magazine. So to make a long story longer, I picked up the magazine, started going through it. For those of you that can recall these kind of things, you used to be able to circle the ad that you wanted to get more information about, and they would send you brochures. Well, this is old school marketing. So they sent you really, really neat brochures, these big brochures. Cessna, she used to send out a brochure of a Cessna 172, a Skyhawk or a Skylane with, pictures of people with luggage and camping gear standing next to this beautiful aircraft, talking about all the great things you can do as a private pilot flying this airplane. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool stuff. And the other plane that I got a brochure about was the Beechcraft King Air. Well, if I thought I liked Cessna's a little 4-seater, the King Air that was heaven to me. So, but the ironic part of the story, and here's where the sales part really kind of kicks in. One day our phone rings, my mom answers, and it's a guy from Beechcraft. And he asked to speak to me. And my mom says, well, what do you want to speak to my son about? Because remember, I'm 12, right? And he says, oh, I think he's interested in purchasing a King Air. And my mom says, well, first of all, what is a King Air? And he says, oh, it's a nice twin engine turboprop, blah, 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 blah. And she said, oh, okay. She said, and I'm just curious, how much do these King Airs cost? And he told her, and she said, well, we didn't pay that much for our home. But by the way, my son is 12. And he was very nice. He said, oh, ma'am, I'm standing real near her and right next to her. And he says, oh, ma'am, I understand, no problem at all. I'll just touch base with him in 10 or 15 years, see if he's still interested.
Perfect.
That was the absolute perfect thing. Of course, my mom hung up, looked at me and said, what was that all about? was like, come on, let me show you. Went to my room. You can imagine I had those brochures opened up, posted all over the wall. So I showed her the Beechcraft King Air brochure and I said, this is the King Air. And she said, how'd you get it? I showed her in the flying magazine how I got it. And she read it over and she said, okay, well, you can keep doing that, but don't put our phone number in there. It's like, okay, Mom, sounds good to me. But I thought, he was the consummate salesman. He just was like, okay, well, I'll just get back to him when he's old enough to buy one, old enough to buy one and fly one. So that was really a great experience, and my first experience, early experiences with regard to Cessna and ironically Beechcraft. So I had to share that with everybody to get things started. I think what I'd like to do at this point is kind of start off and tell a little bit about, talk a little bit with you guys about your backgrounds and how you got into it. And then we can get into more about what the opportunities are and things like that. I'm going to go to Dave first because Dave is probably in that same age category as me and has been at Textron for a very long time. And so Dave, out of respect to you as the senior of the bunch, let me let you, first of all, you're sitting in a longitude. See, I thought I was big time sitting in this CJ3. Dave pops on and he's in a longitude, which is one of their newest aircraft for Textron Aviation. And voila, here we go.
Here we go. Well, I tell you, Vince, thank you. I have some of the very same stories that you just shared. When I was about that same age, I would write both Beechcraft. I grew up in Wichita, Kansas, so I had the opportunity to drive by the factories and see the new airplanes on the field as they were parked wingtip to wingtip, awaiting delivery. And that's one thing that really got me excited. And I would do the same thing. I would send off and get brochures. And I had decided that if I worked hard enough, mowed enough lawns and saved enough money, I could buy a Cessna 210 sometime, in about 25 years. And so I thought, well, you might as well get started doing that. And so that was kind of how I really got the bug. But what really inspired me was when I was 14, a gentleman I knew took me flying in a Beech Bonanza. And he let me sit up front. He let me fly for a little bit. He told me I was a natural. He probably just said that because he was just being kind, but I absolutely believed it, and I never looked back. So I ended up, after college, I went into the U.S. Air Force. And I spent about 12 years in the Air Force, and I was fortunate. I got to fly some frontline fighters, and it was kind of the thrill of a lifetime. But I started looking ahead and realized that at some point I was going to need to make a career change. And so I started looking around, and at the time, as we were talking before we went live, I knew two things. I knew the military and I knew the airlines, and all of the pilots I knew went to the airlines. But one day someone came to me and said, have you ever thought about being a corporate pilot? I knew nothing about it. I said, tell me more. Well, what he was specifically talking about was being a demonstration pilot for Cessna Aircraft Company. And I said, that sounds interesting because it's a job that I could fly, but there's so many more opportunities outside of the cockpit that I could pursue. And so 26 years ago, I applied for and was hired as a citation demo pilot. And I've been fortunate in the years to follow that I've been able to move up. And now in my current role, I have the opportunity to oversee all of our demonstration flying, our training activities, and our production flight test flying. So I've been doing this now 26 years. I am the elder statesman. But I tell you what, it is a career path that has been far more rewarding than I ever even could have imagined. And it's as I look kind of at the future and see what opportunities are out there, I think it's just as bright as it was 26 years ago when I started.
Yeah. And you're currently vice president of flight operations. And I apologize for not introducing all you guys. I got caught up in my own little story. But you're vice president of flight operations, but you started as a demo pilot?
That's correct. I started as a demo pilot. My very first flight was in back then it was in the Citation Ultra, which was, it was the kind of upgraded version of the Citation 5. And right. I didn't know the first thing about what I was doing in terms of the sales process. The flying part was not at all unfamiliar to me, but how we integrated with the sales team to take the product out to a customer, to show that customer the product, how that product can meet the customer's needs, and do it in a way that really was in line with specifically what they needed. So we would fly to, and we still do to this day, fly to their airport, put the airplane in their hangar, let them fly the airplane with us to get a better understanding of all of the features of the aircraft, and then in many cases take them, colleagues, family, on trips that they might do in an airplane that they're considering purchasing. So the entire scope of operations, and so yeah, I started off doing that as a brand new pilot at Cessna.
Yeah, wow, that's really impressive. Let's go to Patrick for a bit. Patrick, you are our vice president of regional sales for Textron, if I got that right. So tell us how you got into that, and I think you come from an engineering background.
Yeah, so it a little bit like all of us have talked so far. Growing up, I was around air shows from day one. My dad was a pilot. My grandpa was a pilot. They used to have their fun stories. For a while, they were lucky enough to be the Beach Boys. Going back a little way, they were the Beach Boys pilots for a while, flying them around on tour. And so grew up with it my entire life and going to air shows. Always kind of got taught to, be that one that looks up in the sky when you hear something fly by. And so knew I had an interest in it from the very start. And as things went along through school, knew that I wanted to get into aviation. And for me, the technical side, engineering was something that appealed to me. And growing up here in Wichita, it was really the perfect fit. With Wichita State was one of the top aerospace engineering schools in the country. And so started at Wichita State, got my aerospace engineering degree, was actually hired by, at the time, Raytheon Aircraft, which was making aircraft and Hawker. Hired by them at the end of my sophomore year as a engineering intern. And then I was fortunate enough to stay on. I was a full-time intern through the rest of college and full-time school. And so did that through the rest of my college, graduated, came on as a full-time employee in engineering. So did that really for my first 7 years. From what I knew at that point, it was great. It was before the 2008 financial crisis. And, we had 3, 4, 5 new airplanes on the drawing board at a given time. So nothing more fitting for an engineer to be designing new airplanes. 2008, 2009 happened. The industry slowed down, and engineering, no sense spending $1 billion or more on a new project when the market's falling out from underneath. So took some different roles, ran an engineering facility for the company over in India, remotely, had a team of about 80 over in India that was doing some work for us. And then by happenstance, one day, a colleague that worked at the company that I'd went to school with came by my area and talked about a new role he had taken on the sales and marketing side called sales engineering, which the focus was really taking some people who had a technical mindset and integrating them with the sales team to go talk technical about the airplanes with pilots, with maintenance technicians, operations teams, to help the sales team focus on the relationship and be the technical voice behind it. Sounded amazing to me. I always had that interest in understanding the rest of what happened after I designed a part of an airplane, and went over and took that role and never really looked back. Spent a few years doing that role. Ended up in a little over 150 countries, supporting demonstrations, sales initiatives, talking about our product, and then continued from there. Took a variety of roles in product marketing, ran the King Air product line for a little bit, and then our fleet sales team, and then for a few years now have been the regional vice president of sales for all of our King Air all the way up to Longitude, primarily in the Midwest US now.
Yeah. So you're another example of someone who started their career with one direction and one intention and ended up doing something that wasn't even on the radar, as we like to say as pilots at the time, but became a passion and something that you've grown into, that it sounds like you're very excited about, as excited as you were when you first started out in aerospace engineering.
Couldn't be truer. Yep.
Yeah.
It was a fun time.
It was, yeah. I was just going to say, Lina, you have just started relatively soon recently, I should say, as a sales associate. You're in Texas with Textron, and your path is one that everybody needs to hear about, because while there's things that are kind of, standard or common sense about it, it's also going to be interesting to hear how you got into aviation in the first place, and it progressed to where you are now.
Yeah, definitely. So I actually had no aviation background. No one in my family was into aviation. My family are all scared flyers, actually. So it was kind of random of me to be interested in it. But like Patrick and Dave, I grew up in Wichita, Kansas. So I always knew the presence of Textron Aviation and always had an interest in what the company did. So I started my career at Textron this summer after my junior year of college at the University of Kansas as a sales operations intern. And
what were you studying in school?
I studied marketing. I did a sales certificate, but my bachelor's was in marketing, and I thought that was what I wanted to do all this time. So took a sales internship, surprisingly, but that's kind of where I caught the aviation bug, and also found that appreciation for the company as a whole and explored this new career path. So did that for a summer and was lucky to come back after graduation, February of 2020. And I joined the sales development program, which is a one-year rotational program that kind of gives you the background knowledge and experience to be out in the field at the end of it. So,
just before the pandemic.
Yeah, so I started at a great time. Definitely people like to call it my initiation into aviation, because, you kind of see the ebbs and flows of the market. And, I kind of got to come in at a really, crazy time, I guess. So taught me a lot of how to work remotely and work through an industry that was constantly changing. But I think I still had a really good experience in the program despite everything else that was happening. So that wrapped up at the end of February this year, and I started this role right after. So it's been about 3 months almost, probably next week. So I'm still fairly new to it, but happy.
Yeah. And we were just talking about that you're getting ready to start taking flying lessons. You're gonna get your private pilot certificate.
That's the goal. I started it a little bit in Wichita, and then, as I took this new role, I was kind of traveling here and there. So time slipped away for a little bit, but I'm, ready to get back into a routine of doing lessons and, catching back up to where I was.
So what's your take on selling aircraft versus what you thought you were going to be doing in the world of marketing? They're kind of, they overlap each other.
They do. And it's such a fun job to do. What interested me about marketing was how to find new leads and how to, tie in new strategies and, creative takes, drive sales. Sorry about that. To drive sales and, impact the company as a whole. And I'm lucky to be able to do both in this role. I can see the sales cycle with my sales directors and my colleagues, but we can also work behind the scenes to, find new ways to drive business and activity around different aircraft. So it's great to see the overlap between the two of them. And I think it's a perfect combination of both too.
Yeah. Dave, we have a lot of college graduates and our kids that are currently in college or recently graduated. Some of them have been on a professional pilot track, or have gotten a degree or getting a degree in aeronautical science, aerospace engineering, et cetera, but they're not sure what they want to do. And you mentioned earlier that you didn't know that there was even an opportunity in the world of demo flying. So tell us about that, and tell us about, tell our viewers what those opportunities are and how you can go about possibly becoming a demo pilot.
Absolutely. Well, we several years ago, when we started to realize that that pilots had a choice in their in their career path, and that choice was almost entirely dominated by what was then the airline industry literally taking every pilot they could find. And we could not compete with that on a volume basis. We just didn't have the presence to have people, recruiters at every college campus that had a flight program. And so we decided to take a different approach to that. And we decided, because being a demonstration pilot is a unique skill set, we decided that what we would do is we would start training from an entry level position, and we would hire pilots who were interested in the entire breadth of flight operations as they related to aircraft manufacturing, sales, and all of those things. And so we targeted our recruiting to schools where we could have a one-on-one relationship with pilots. And as they went through and say junior, senior year, bring them in for an internship for a summer. But then what we could also do is we could start offering pilots who might say didn't have the total time necessary to get an airline job. We could bring them in and in our piston training program, actually give them the year and a half that we needed to develop their flying skills a little further, but also help them understand our company, what we did, how we did it, integrate them into our overall flight operations, and then as they progressed in their skill set, move into the right seat and left seat of our turbine aircraft. I'll get a drink of water here in a minute. And so we've developed over the last few years probably 25 pilots that and not all of them. Some of them honestly decided that maybe flying for an aircraft manufacturer wasn't necessarily their long-term goal, and so we've had some that have decided to move on to other things. But we've also had people that have moved out of the cockpit into sales roles. And into other customer support roles and that sort of thing. And so what we're doing is we're a pipeline of talent that some stay and fly with us long term, some move into other areas of the company, and it's been highly successful. And so for anyone who is considering a professional pilot career, but might not necessarily like me want to become an airline pilot, and I understand that there's a huge draw for many people to do that. But for those that say, there's probably something else I want to do. I enjoyed the customer interaction. I enjoyed the ability to do more things than, as I say, just fly an airplane. Nothing wrong with that, but I enjoyed the entire process. And this is a job that allows people to do that.
Sure. Have you seen people come into the world of being a demo pilot and at some point decide they really like it so much they want to sell the aircraft, so they transition to become a full-time sales rep?
Absolutely. We have a couple that have done that over the years and have been very successful. One of the things that we learn in this business is that the product, in this case, an airplane, it's a complex piece of machinery. The sales process is involved. Obviously it requires in many times and in many cases years of relationship building and establishing the value of the product in the customer's eyes, and then to bring that airplane to a customer and have them ask all of the technical questions that they have and show them all the features of the airplane. Our pilots become truly product experts.
Yeah,
that parlays really well into a sales role if someone is of a mind to get into sales, where they now have that solid basis of knowledge about the product, where they can answer all of the technical questions. They can, you'd be surprised, pilot or, most of our customers, are very, very technically savvy on the airplanes. They understand things about aircraft range and operations and things like that. So to have a flying background and then to use that to build on a sales, a sales career makes that, I think, that salesperson uniquely qualified to answer both technical questions, but also a lot of the other questions that customers have. Sure.
Patrick, let's talk about the sales process. I think that's a great segue to you and a big responsibility in your area. And I have to pay a compliment to Textron Aviation. As I said, I've known the company for a long time. Your overall process of how you guys treat customers and what you do in terms of your interaction and engagement with customers is, tops in the industry. You guys really are thorough with every aspect of it, which brings us to the process and how many different things are involved. Because what I want our viewers to understand that may not be as familiar, or may not even be that familiar with aviation overall, is that it's not just a simple, you want to buy an airplane, here's how much it costs in the story. It is so much more involved, and the more knowledgeable the salesperson is, the better. And I'm speaking for you. Let me give it to you.
No, you're very right. It becomes a very involved process. There's so many, as everybody knows, with airplanes, there's so many parts and pieces and technology that goes into them. that there's a lot to know. Every one of our customers has different needs in what they're doing. There's some fundamental things. They're usually all looking at these as tools or time machines for their day-to-day life. And so as we work with our sales team, we really try to stay on top of, product knowledge, understanding the airplanes, understanding how we can relate to the customer of what our products do and how that's going to make a difference in what they're trying to solve for. Every one of them are trying to solve for some sort of solution, and we try to pride ourselves in being a solutions provider and helping them achieve what they want to do. So as we go through with customers, it really starts there of trying to build that relationship to where they get comfortable talking about what they're really trying to solve for. Are they trying to do business more efficiently? Are they trying to, use a tool they can save time and see their family more often, or spend more time on that side? And so once we start to understand a few of those pieces of that puzzle, that's when we can really turn I'll call it our sales machine loose. Our team is very trained in the product knowledge. We have an incredible flight operations team with Dave's team that helps us in demonstrating the product. But there's literally hundreds of other people that operate inside the company to help form this entire message for a customer. And it's running trip profiles. What does a CJ3 Plus look like from an operating cost standpoint? If you want to fly from Hagerstown to Chicago and common missions where your business may be, we can run all that detail and help put some numbers behind it. What are the tax implications? Just like any big purchase, there's sales tax, there's ownership tax, property tax,
state tax, federal.
That's one of the things that you can never escape, as we all have learned to live, is taxes everywhere. So we help our customer base try to understand all of these complex pieces, whether it be airplane complexity, ownership complexity. Certainly with the pandemic, we've got this entire new subset of customers that have come in that are first-time private aviation individuals. They've maybe chartered a flight here or there, but a lot of their use was airlines, or they weren't in this space at all. And whether it be driven from a health concern, elderly individuals that need to ensure that they can travel safely. Exactly. And then with the airlines, they're still very substantially impacted. I saw a forecast out yesterday that a lot of the airline traffic is not expected to come back until 2024. So if you're a business owner, even say out of a huge hub like Chicago, you may have been fine using airlines to get to your 3 or 4 regional locations that you needed to. There were sometimes, 8, 9 flights a day, but even with schedules now, that's fallen off. And private aviation is becoming the only way that you can effectively get to your businesses, do that in a day or 2 trip versus on the airlines today, that may be 4 or 5. And if you're trying to run a company, productivity and being there first before your competitors or another market decision happens is key. And so it becomes very involved throughout the process. It's sometimes just a few of us between me, with Lina and our team. The customers sometimes just see 2 or 3 faces in the process, but there's dozens, if not hundreds, of people behind it that help support all the different data points that go into it.
Yeah, I see it as very complex in the sense that you guys have jets, you have turboprops, you have piston aircraft, you have owner operators, and then you have companies that are increasing their aircraft fleet or adding to or starting an aircraft fleet and that. But you also have things called like aftermarket sales and dealing with, what color the aircraft's going to be and what the interior is going to look like and things like that. Can you speak to that a bit in terms of those other pieces of selling an aircraft?
Sure. That's a great point. I mean, that's stuff that weighs in to the entire life cycle. So when we do a transaction for a new airplane, that's a point in time, but it a lot of times actually becomes the start of the relationship, or the very, very early stages relative to what our total relationship is going to be with the customer. A lot of these products, we still have products that are 30, 40, 50 years old that are still operating and in service today. So as these customers fly all over the world, we have teams that are not only obviously our new aircraft team, but there's a huge network of thousands of employees through service centers, through mobile service units, aftermarket parts and service sales. These airplanes, just like we live every day in our cars, they need to be maintained. And so there's, as I said, thousands of employees in the company that their sole job is out there helping with upgrades. As new technology mandates come on board, we've got to keep those airplanes updated. And that continues to drive another huge talent stream for what we need in our company is mechanics, obviously sales opportunities on that side, engineering help. Every facet that goes into designing airplanes is replicated, if not more, on the aftermarket, making sure we've got the parts, the people, the responsiveness, the service that they need to continue operating, again, for sometimes decades after the airplane was purchased, and in every corner of the globe. We've operated our products on every continent in the world, so it is truly a worldwide effort.
Yeah. So Lina, you've heard from the two veterans at Textron Aviation give out a whole bunch of information. As somebody new and who came, can you talk a little bit more about your internship that transitioned into sales development that now has put you in a position as a regional rep, and tell us about that process, what you learned from it, what you're still learning in your new position.
Definitely. So my internship was in sales operations. So, at our company, sales operations is sales support. The big function of that is to support the sales team with customer visits, customer tours, just kind of making the whole process streamlined. But with that, we had the opportunity to work collaboratively with our team members. There were 19 of us that summer that I interned. So it was a pretty big group of us running around.
Wow.
Yeah.
Textron was covering their bases.
Yeah, they were. So we did a lot of teamwork working on different projects too. So a lot of product presentations to kind of get us comfortable with the industry, because a lot of us did not have that aviation background, and just kind of involving you in the company as a whole. We got to meet a lot of customers and different staff in the sales team, but also cross-functionally with, marketing and engineering as well. So that summer was it was only for, 3 months, but I felt like I was able to learn so much during that time, but it was also just scraping the surface too. So I had a lot of fun that summer, and it really did give me the aviation bug and kind of showed me the possibilities of a career path in the industry. Getting to meet with the sales team and also the people that were in the sales development program at that time. It was really great to kind of see their experiences as well. So definitely knew I wanted to come back after graduation. And so when I graduated a couple months later, I came back for the program, which, like I mentioned earlier, it's a 1-year rotational program that you go through. I was in the February.
How many departments did you rotate through in the sales development program?
I want to say 5 or 6, but typically there's a few more rotations that I wasn't able to get through just because of COVID. For rotations, it was hard to get through with working from home and teams being in and out. So on a typical year, you would get to touch more teams. I was able to go through technical marketing, aftermarket sales, new aircraft sales / sales operations, parts and distribution, deliveries, and pre-owned. So I had a pretty good, look at different parts of the company, but typically other people will get to see more if it's a normal year. So did that for a year. I got to put on a lot of different hats, and it's kind of like a 1-year interview if you think about it, which was some good motivation, I think, to really, try out every department and, kind of see what fit.
Make sure it's something you really want to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, being, how old was I? I was, 21 when I started the program. Like there was no way I could have picked exactly what role I wanted to do right out of college. So I think it's a really good opportunity to kind of let yourself spend that year training and seeing what team you fit well with. So it was really fun to kind of see that in myself. And during that year, I had Patrick as a mentor, which was great for me. Hopefully he enjoyed that too.
It worked out.
Yeah. But he did a really great job of integrating me into his team too. He knew kind of what role I was looking for, and we were able to work together to kind of, get to that place too. So it was kind of an effort with different teams to, place yourself in the end and see where you fit. But yeah, at the end of the year, I was able to take on this role as regional sales associate for North Texas. Obviously took everything I learned in the program, the internship, into play, but I feel like I'm still learning so many things every day. Only 3 months into this role, so I have a lot to learn, and by no means
brand new.
Yeah,
so you moved from Kansas to Texas.
Yes. Yeah.
So that in itself, you've had to make the adjustment and get used to things. And
yeah, definitely. I've always been in Kansas. I mean, even for college, I went to KU, so it was only 2 hours away from home. So it was definitely an adjustment to kind of, move to a new city and a new state and, do that big move that I feel like most people do in their life. So yeah, it was a really good challenge though. And I'm really happy with the way it worked out.
what aircraft do you focus on in terms of what you sell there?
So I'm lucky to support the whole product line from the King Air up to the Longitude. I support 2 directors, and they're divided by single pilot or 2 pilot aircraft, or we like to say owner operator or corporate accounts. So I'm able to kind of cover both sides of it. So it's really good to see how the different customers compare, or how the different aircraft processes work too.
Yeah. Have you found the relationships you've had through the development program helpful now because of the different people at the different departments throughout Textron?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a big part of the year, you obviously want to learn your technical knowledge and, those things like that. But I think a huge aspect of the program is building your network too back in Wichita. Because even now I barely know anything. I'm scraping the surface, but I know who to call if I have a question. So that's so helpful, especially with customers. If, I have a resource I can take advantage of.
Yeah. Dave, you've seen a lot of young people come up into the industry. What do you recommend to them in terms of what they should look at first, what paths they should take? What kind of advice do you have for that?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would say that everybody's got a passion for something. People are different. People like, to do different things, but there will be something that someone will say, I'm fascinated by that. I want to learn more about that. And so I would say, first of all, follow your passion. And if it's flying, or if it's doing something in maintenance or engineering or whatever it is, something that just makes you say, I want to do that. Because that's so important. It is so important to have that where you literally want to go to work. You're excited about doing something that just really drives you. But then I say, really keep your eyes open at what all of the opportunities are out there. Like Lina was saying, she didn't know when she first started where she would end up, but her path has now taken her to Texas, where she's in a sales support role. And ultimately, I'm sure her goal is to move into a sales director position and maybe take Patrick's job someday. But
watch out, Patrick.
That's right. but as time goes along, people will look at it and they'll say, well, I didn't know this was an opportunity. I didn't know this career path existed. And people might want to expand a different area or do something that is not directly in line with their original training. I consider myself that way. I started off, my college education was in business management, and I was going to go to work for Beechcraft in contract administration when I graduated. But it was a global recession that caused them to call me and say, we're going to need to put this on hold for a little while. And I then took that opportunity to pursue my lifelong goal of being a pilot. But it took that, which kind of got me out of my comfort zone and forced me. Lina talked about the big move, and that was my big move, and it led to a 30+ year career in actual aviation operations. Yeah, but I never lost the passion, and I think that's the key.
Yeah, no, a point well taken, and there are so many young people that are currently trying to figure out what they want to do and what direction. And you both have talked about, you and Patrick have talked about something, a sort of crisis or whatever that happened, or something that was dramatic and changed everything. And I've heard that so many times, and we had that last year. I mean, the pandemic flipped a lot of potential careers upside down, talking specific of aviation. I've talked to a number of students at schools like Embry-Riddle and UND, SIU Carbondale, and they've all said the same thing. They were on track to do this, and they thought, okay, I graduate with my professional pilot training, X number of hours, and then I'm going to go into this program with one of the airlines. It's going to eventually put me in the right seat of a CRJ or whatever. And it stopped. It just came to a complete halt, and they had to regroup and figure things out. Patrick, you're nodding in total agreement. You want to talk about that from your perspective?
Yeah, it happens. And just as you pointed out, I mean, Dave and I have both seen it in our career and had these inflection points. There's never a moment that I was going through school that I could have predicted I'd be, regional vice president selling airplanes. You don't know what paths are going to be out there. I mean, you can take actions and do certain things along the way to try to steer that. And I totally agree with Dave's point about, from having that passion, you can help that kind of be a guide, kind of your, if you want to think of it kind of like bumpers to keep you in a general target. But things are going to happen, and they're completely out of your control. You have no way to do anything about it sometimes. Certainly COVID, financial recessions, things are going to happen, and you just have to keep that passion and keep that openness to learning something different. To sometimes that is going to make you step outside of your comfort zone. So take those opportunities when they're there. Maybe something that you're uncomfortable with, or learning something new. Lina had to hear me preach about this a few times as she rotated through, but I always encourage, people in our development programs too, to sometimes it's good to, recognize what things you're good at, but sometimes spend even more time on some self-reflection of what you're not, or what's outside of your comfort zone. What could you get better at? Because those are the things that can make some new opportunities happen for you when you may be going down the path of being thinking it's going to be a CRJ captain for one of the regionals, and start down that path, and COVID happens, and what do I do now? If you spend some of that time always looking at ways to get yourself better, it'll help get you through those times and get you prepared with skills that some of your peers may not have, and make you more attractive as an employee for a career path that you may never have thought of. But it takes, use your passion and use that as an advantage to go force yourself to always learn new things. Yeah.
Lina, what was the turning point for you? What was the exact time or approximate time that you said, you know what, I just found something I'm really into, I'm going with this?
Do you mean like aviation as a whole, or for this role?
Aviation.
Definitely my internship. It was that summer. I'd never done an internship before, actually. So the idea of it in my mind was that I would be, sitting at my desk all day, or fetching coffee for people. And I found myself looking forward to going to work every day, which like most people don't look forward to that when they're 21 and they're working an 8 to 5 during the summer every single day, but I loved it. And I realized it's because I was surrounded by people who were extremely interesting and knowledgeable, but also the industry as a whole was so fun to be around. I mean, I got to come to work every day and be around airplanes and be around experts on airplanes too. So that kind of was a big turning point for me when I realized that jobs can actually be fun and enjoyable. And I think that's where that passion came from. So I never felt that before, I think, with, my other customer service jobs or things like that. But there was just a big appreciation for the company and the industry as a whole that happened.
Guys, we got her hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
she's good to go for aviation. Let's shift a little bit with the time that we have left. I wanted to just talk about the industry overall from you guys' perspective, Patrick and David in particular, in terms of what you see happening in the industry going forth. First of all, I wanted to say that Textron Aviation has an incredible reputation for the product line that you guys have, whether it's a small aircraft all the way up to, which one's the biggest one now?
It's a Longitude.
Longitude, yeah.
Yep.
And you're sitting in the Longitude, right?
I am sitting in the captain's seat of Longitude. Correct.
There you go. Anyhow, show off. But it's really, I'm just kidding, Dave. It's really great what you guys have been doing in the industry. But my point is, you offer a lot of options. And as we start to see things normalize, if you will, and the industry grow the way it's looking to do so, can you share your perspective on what that all means and what your needs are?
Sure, I'll start and let Patrick kind of fill in on his side. First of all, I think that in general, we know that people are going to travel. People are going to want to go from place to place. That is something that is just it's just an absolute. And so our product lines, from the piston singles all the way up to the Longitude, allow people to do that in a very unique and flexible way. I think that the future is going to be driven by a lot of things that we probably don't know right now. I know that right now with a lot of the green initiatives, our company is, as a matter of fact, the airplane I'm sitting in right now, one of the things that we do as a routine matter of course is we use sustainable fuels in the aircraft to help promote that sort of climate change initiatives and how we can contribute as an industry to do that. I think we're going to see continued automation as more and more avionics manufacturers develop things that allow airplanes to operate autonomously. That certainly is a big piece of the industry is going to be unmanned, vehicles. We've seen that. So I guess what I'm saying in that is there's a lot of uncertainty, but with uncertainty, in many cases comes a lot of opportunity. But it's like we've been talking about, you don't exactly know what that looks like. In the short term, in our business, we continue to see very, very strong demand for our products. That means that we are going to need people to design them, people to build them, people to fly them, people to maintain them, and all of the components that go into that. And that future seems to be as bright as I've seen it in the 26 years I've been doing this. And it just seems that we've weathered a lot of things, whether there be global economic issues or a pandemic and that. And yet, as I said at the outset, we still see people that need to go places, that want to go places. And I think that that's going to be the opportunity. So anyone that is looking at aviation as a possible career, I would say the sky's the limit. And I know that sounds rather trite, but there are so many opportunities for someone who wants to pursue this. It's just a matter of kind of diving in and starting to look at the industry in a new way. And people might not, like me, might not have ever realized that there were opportunities to do things in this industry. But once you get in, you can go in so many different directions and really, satisfy any number of career aspirations by going into general aviation.
Sure. Patrick, give me an idea of your perspective on that.
Yeah. Vince, in sales, there's an answer to a question that I've learned well over the years, and it's everything that the pilot just said is the truth. Dave hit on so many of the things that are pushing us. There's, as I said earlier, we're really focused on our company trying to be a solutions provider for customer to try to help transform the way they live their lives or run their business. And that takes every aspect of the industry, from engineering to technicians, pilots, again, a lot of things that Dave laid out there. And there's so many big step changes, I think, coming in aviation. Dave hit on the eVTOL one, that there's enough push behind that the momentum is there, that something is going to happen. We've recently, through our partner company of Bell Helicopter, have announced some partnerships in that space with Wheels Up and some of the players. But we as a company are really focused on, if we can invest our money and we can go make a difference and live to our mission in that space, and be an industry leader, we're going to go there. And this is going to drive that next level of need for talent that I think is actually good relative to the talent class. As people are becoming, we grow up with, I remember growing up, I was so happy to get that Nokia bar phone that had Snake, and I had a battery that lasted for about 4.5 years. But as people have just grown up ingrained in technology, those are the things in that mindset and thinking through technology and how that works, even software programming, are going to become so key to us as we try to go into those spaces, because those technologies do not work off just traditional things that we've grown up with in aviation. So there's
that are now a given.
Exactly. And, I can look at even my peers, and it truly is, you can come from any path. One of my peers was a history major. Another one was a geology major. Another one was finance, and another one was an operations guy in Southeast Asia. So there's no limit to the paths that you can go here. And you learn those skill sets, and they can be applied in so many ways. And I think the trajectory right now of our business is going to take us into so many non-traditional areas that we haven't been in before, that scope of what's possible just continues to grow.
I think that's happening overall in aviation and aerospace. There are areas that are opening up for, and I love the fact that you brought up that really doesn't matter what your major is. A lot of people have a tendency to think that you have to major in some aspect of aviation, aeronautical science, aerospace engineering, or whatever to work in the industry, and you don't. I always like to mention from time to time, I had a group of helicopter pilots from the various branches of the military service. They were all female helicopter pilots. One of them was because that was the focus of the show, one of them was a history major. Another was an English lit major. And these were all really incredible pilots. And I thought, well, that's pretty darn cool. You majored in English lit, but you're flying, whatever. So I thought that was pretty neat. Patrick, while I have you, let me ask you this. Can you give us an example of a day in the life of one of your reps? A week in the life, let's say, because a day, that's too short a period. But over a week, what's their routine? What are some of the things that they do?
Yeah. So when you look at our sales team, they live in so many different parts of the process. And like we talked about it, some of this, we have deals that are sometimes a 4 or 5 year pursuit to get an airplane sold. We've had deals come together in 24 hours. So being, we consider it kind of a sales funnel. There's people at different stages, from a customer side, different stages in their process. So some people, we're just building basic relationships. So your day, you're right, a week is probably a better way to sum up some of the things, but it's a combo of some cold calling. You've got customers that are further along that you're trying to coordinate, some of that technical marketing detail, trip profiles, range circles, weaving in some customer lunches, dinners with pilots or owners. You can get overwhelmed quickly. It can be a certainly dawn to dusk thing and take you beyond that. But it moves and flows. You're working with multiple levels of people, trying to coordinate all those aspects, where you may be traveling between 2 or 3 different states, doing demonstrations of the products with our demo team. It can be full throttle. It's not a sitting at a desk working a phone or answering email, a standard course of business. You're on the move all the
Constantly.
time.
It's dynamic. And then you have people that you're that are already flying your aircraft. Maybe they want to upgrade, or maybe they want to get something newer, and things like that. So that's a different process than somebody that is coming into one of your aircraft for the first time. I don't want to forget that because you have a lot of owner operators, you guys are tied in with flight safety.
Correct.
For the recurrency and transition training and things like that. You want to speak to that for a sec?
Yeah. So a few years ago, we developed a partnership with flight safety. With our products, first and foremost, we want our customers to be safe as well. And as you mentioned, we have a lot of owner operator products. And as we try to do that, we want to be equally as tied in with that part of the business. For a while, we actually had our own simulation and training business under the title of True. There was a Textron entity, and then we decided to merge that with flight safety to take advantage of everything that both companies offered. We could bring some world-class simulator technology, simulator design technology, partner that up with a worldwide installed base from flight safety of facilities, instructors, coursework. And so we still stay very tied into that. And it's why we've continued to do that through a joint venture to make sure that if we're going to sell products that people are going to trust their business associates, their family, and put them in the airplane with them, we want to make sure that we can give them really a world-class training opportunity so they can do that in a safe manner. So we provide that as part of the basic package when you buy an aircraft from us. We provide that's a recurring thing that our owners do as well. So it's something we take very serious as well, to make sure that if we're going to, have them put their trust in us to put their family, their colleagues, the most important people to them in our product, we want to make sure they're trained accordingly to go do that on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Dave, demo flying is equally dynamic and always evolving, if you will. Can you give us an example also of what a week is like being a demo pilot there at Textron?
Sure. Well, of course, we have a product line that ranges from the Skyhawk, the 172, up to the Longitude. So we have piston airplanes, we have turboprop airplanes, and we have twin engine jets. Our pilots fly all of those airplanes, not all at the same time, obviously, but so a typical week is anything but typical, but I can kind of give you a couple of examples that can sort of illustrate it. A couple of weeks ago, I was doing a sunset photo shoot, a marketing photo shoot, air-to-air formation. I was in a caravan, and so we do that kind of thing. A typical week might be where a pilot gets into, let's say, a CJ3 plus like you're in, flies around for 2 or 3 days, visiting different customers, doing pilot demos, doing what we call executive demos. And then the other piece of it is that we take these airplanes all over the world. And so our pilots get to travel. I've been on 6 continents. I've never been to Antarctica, and we're looking at an opportunity to do that. But that's probably the one that would be on my bucket list. But I tell a story that sort of illustrates it. That one morning, some years ago, I woke up in Paris. We did a demo in Paris. We flew down to Cannes, and we did a demo down there, had lunch overlooking the Mediterranean. And I was back in Wichita having dinner with my wife that evening.
Wow.
So I was a little jet lagged, I'll admit. I was a little tired with the time zone change. But, these aircraft literally span continents. And the ability of our pilots to be able to travel the world and to meet people, customers all over in so many different countries and experience that is a really, really unique feature of the demonstration pilot.
Yeah. Well said. Guys, we're kind of running out of time, and I want to give everybody a chance for one last thing. I'll start with you, Lina. And my basic question to you is, what would you advise others that are your peer? They're about the same age as you, or they're currently in college or recently graduating, from your experiences so far?
I would say just go for, kind of what Dave said, find your passion or what interests you and go into it with an open mind. So, if there's an industry that piques your interest and that, you'd actually enjoy being around every day, get away into it, but also be open to whatever career path might come and just, check in with yourself and see where you are and, what you'd be good at. So I'd say just go for it and, find a company that'll give you good opportunities and really help you grow from the beginning, and one that'll really invest in you.
Yeah, well said. Patrick, any closing comments?
Say be passionate, be hungry, and go full throttle at it. Go take advantage of it. Be the leader in it and go do the best you can.
Very well. And Dave, I'll let you, what I like to say, take us home.
Well, I would say, first of all, never stop learning. Always be willing to try something new. be willing to make a change, sometimes voluntarily, but if the change happens involuntarily, it's a new opportunity, and take full advantage of it, and you will be amazed at where your career can take you.
Guys, it's been a pleasure having you. That hour went by really quick, but we covered a lot of territory. But it was great to have all of you on, particularly you, Patrick, and Dave, with your backgrounds with Textron and in aviation as veterans in the industry, and your perspectives on both of your areas that kind of cross over. And Lina, quite impressive, young lady. You're just getting started in your career. We aviation types love it when we see the bug, bite, that you get hooked in, and we know it's hook, line, and sinker, because that's it. You got an aviation career for life, whether you knew it or not. But no, it's really great. So I want to thank first Patrick Buckles, Regional Vice President of Sales for Textron Aviation, David Nolte, the Vice President of Flight Operations for Textron, and Lina Sabbah. Lina Sabbah. Did I say it right the second time?
Yeah, you did. You got it.
I finally got it. Lina Sabbah, who is a regional sales associate in sales support out there in Texas for Textron Aviation. It's been a pleasure having everybody watching this show, a very interesting one, talking about sales opportunities and demo flying opportunities with a really great company. Thank you very much for watching All Things Aviation and Aerospace. I'm Vince Mickens with the Private Air Media Group. Looking forward to a very exciting show again next week. I know every week I say the same thing, but it's true. But next week I will be live from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University talking about the opportunities in maintenance careers. So look forward to seeing you guys then. Thanks, everybody. Guys, take care.
Thank you.